Hello and good afternoon, CTS266 Section 840 students for the Spring 2016 semester at Anne Arundel Community College. This is the CCNP Switch course, and this afternoon's video tutorial is going to be Challenge Activity number 4, where we're going to be taking a look at Etherchannel. And so for our scenario, we've got a senior colleague, Dwayne, has given us and our fellow colleague, Greg, a job to do. Our task is to bundle the 4 links between the distribution layer switches using Etherchannel. So it says Greg is going to be responsible for bundling 2 links for each of the following connections. Switch 1 to distribution switch 1, and then switch 2 to distribution switch 2. Dwayne said the link between the distribution layer switches should be in channel group 2, and that the bundles that connect the distribution and access layer switches should belong to channel group 1. Also, he wants us to use an open standard protocol, right? So this is critical right here. An open standard protocol to negotiate the Etherchannel links. Well, it's not going to be on because on is not a protocol, right? That is simply statically turning Etherchannel on. It's not going to be PAG-P or the Port Aggregation Protocol because that is Cisco proprietary. So we're going to be using LACP. So let's go ahead and start on the links between DSW1 and DSW2. And as you can see here, it's going to be Ethernet 1.0 through 1.3 and 1.0 through 1.3. So if we jump onto DSW1, we'll go from user exec into privilege exec. And let's say show run. Let's take a look at these interfaces and let's see what we've got here. So it appears, and let me get to 1.0, it appears that we've got the switch port trunk incap.1q already on all 4 of those ports. So let's go ahead and get into global config and say interface range Ethernet 1.0 to 1.3, right? So now that we're in here, we can say channel protocol, and this is a great command to run, right? Because this allows us to sort of protect ourselves against maybe somebody coming in later and trying to use PAG-P. So we're going to hard code these ports as only accepting LACP as the protocol. Now, if we go back to the scenario, let's take another look at this real quick using Etherchannel, and it should be channel group. Dwayne said the link between the distribution layers. So, all right, so we're going to use channel group 2 mode. And now remember, active and passive are for LACP. Auto and desirable, just like the dynamic trunking protocol port states, those are also the names of the Etherchannel port states for PAG-P. Again, Cisco proprietary. Dynamic trunking protocol, Cisco proprietary. So we've got auto and desirable there. We've got active and passive with LACP. So we're definitely going to set this side to active. I don't see anything telling me otherwise. So we'll say, excuse me, channel group 2 mode active. And now what I'm going to do is we're going to hard code these, and I'm going to turn the dynamic trunking protocol off. It didn't ask for that, but I'm going to go ahead and drop that in anyway. So let's get into interface port channel 2. So if I say do show run interface PO2 for port channel 2, you can see all we have here is the switch port command. So if I were to say switch port trunk encapsulation.1q, switch port mode trunk, and switch port no negotiate. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that should be switch port. We should be able to say no negotiate. All right. It doesn't look like it's going to let us do that. All right, so let's go ahead and check and see. We'll say do show, and let me check something really quick because that should, and let's go into global config interface FA101. Switch port, no negotiate. Yeah. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to turn DTP off, but it looks like on the IOU here, that the virtual machines that are being used to emulate the switches, it doesn't look like that command is there. And actually, let me dump into an interface and see if that's available. So Ethernet 1.0, and let's say switch port no negotiate. Yeah, so that's interesting that it's not there. Huh. Okay. So we will get back into interface PO2. and we are going to say do show run interface PO2. Let's see what we've got there. Now you'll notice that we put that switch port trunk and cap.1q command here. We also put the switch port mode trunk command there. So now if I were to say do show run, what we should see on the member interfaces, which we do, actually it doesn't look like it came down. So again, we've got the switch port trunk and cap, but the switch port mode trunk did not make it down here. And I'm not sure if this is a function of the VM or not. All right, so let's take a look at our Etherchannel. Let's see what we've got. So if I were to say do show Etherchannel summary, what do we see? Well, we see port channel 2 here, and all of my links have a little s, lowercase s, which stands for suspended. Because again, we haven't configured anything on the opposite side. So let's jump over here to DSW2, and let's go into privilege exec and then into global config, and we're going to say interface, and let's do a do show run first. Do show run. Let's see what those interfaces look like. So the switch port trunk in cap has already been set, so we're going to say interface range Ethernet 10 to 3, and then we're going to say channel protocol LACP, channel group, we're going to use group 2, and mode, and let's check and see here. I don't believe it tells us. The switches will carry multiple VLANs. You need to configure Etherchannel as trunks. Okay. He calls you for help right now, neither of his pairs. And okay, so we're going to say channel group 2 mode, and I'm going to use active. So both sides will be active. And now we should see that these links get added in. I'm going to go into interface port channel 2. We're going to say switch port mode trunk, switch port trunk encapsulation .1q. And let's see what we've got here. So do show Etherchannel summary. And it looks like port channel 2 just changed its state to up. So it looks like we could have some activity here. So it looks like Ethernet 10 successfully bundled. Suspended still are the other ports. So let's do this. Let's go into the interface range E10 to 3, and I'm going to say shut. So I'm going to bring all the interfaces down. Now we're getting an error message there. Trunk mode of 1 is dynamic. Port 2, port 2 is trunk. Okay, so it looks like on the virtual machine, so if I were to say no shut, my guess is that these are not going to come back up. Yeah, so it's dynamic. So let's go ahead and say switch port mode trunk, switch port trunk in cap.1q. And so interface port channel 2, switch port mode trunk, switch port trunk in cap.1q. So I'm wondering if by putting that switch port mode trunk in there, if that may have hosed things up. So let's see. Do show Etherchannel summary. All right, we are good to go now, right? So we've got the same settings on both sides. The ports are all bundled in there. If I were to go back over here to DSW1 and say do show Etherchannel summary, you can see that all the ports are bundled in for port channel 2. Everything looks great. All right, so that takes care of the first task that we were supposed to deal with. So now if we go back to the scenario, he would like you to use an open standard switch other than the Cisco. Since the links between switches carry from multiple VLANs, and they are, okay, Greg tried to configure his part. And Greg was responsible for the links between the access layer switches and the distribution layer switches. Right now, neither of his two pairs are bundled. So if we come over here, let's take a look on DSW01, and you can see that port channel 1 are in a suspended state, and he's running LACP. So let's go over here to switch 1. We're going to go from user exec to privilege exec, and let's say show Etherchannel summary, and let's see what we've got going on here. Aha! And this could be the problem. So you can see that it says S&D, which means it's a layer 2 port channel, and it's down. But why do you think it's down? So the protocol on this side is PAG-P. The protocol on this side is LACP. We're supposed to be using LACP. So it looks like Greg configured his part, but he configured PAG-P. So here's what we need to do. On switch 1, we need to sort this out, so we're going to go into global config, interface range, Ethernet 02 to 3, and we're going to say no channel group 1 mode, and I believe it was probably desirable. I didn't look, but it was probably desirable. So we're going to pull that off of the switches there because we've got the PAGP being used. So now when I say do show Etherchannel Summary, you can see we've got port channel 1, but it's down. We've got nothing going on. So now let's sort this out. I'm going to say channel protocol. Let's lock it in for LACP. And then we're going to say channel group. And this is going to be 1 mode. And I'm going to say active. So now we've pulled these two interfaces in. What we should see now when I say do show Etherchannel Summary is we should see exactly that. That the Ether channel now between DSW1 and switch 1 has been sorted out. All right, so that takes care of the link between DSW1 and switch 1. Now let's go over to DSW2 and switch 2 and see what we've got going on over here. So we'll come into the diagram. Let's see what Greg did here. If I say do, and you can already see it, do show Etherchannel Summary. Let's get into the clear here. Port channel 1 has one link bundled in, but then Ethernet 03 is not. So let's take a look. Do show Ethernet, or do show run, sorry about that. Let's say do show run Ethernet 03. Do show run interface Ethernet 03. And let's see what we've got here. So we've got channel group 1 mode passive. Now we've got to be careful there, right? Because if the other side is passive as well, the Ether channel is not going to form. Everything else looks good. Now let's pull up switch 2. So here we've got switch 2. Let's go from user exec to privilege exec in a global config, and let's say do show Etherchannel Summary. And so we've got Ethernet 1.2, do show run interface Ethernet 1.2 is in a suspended state. And why does it look like it might be in a suspended state? So we had passive on one side, and we've got active on this side. So this is showing S and U, which means one of the links is up, but that other link is not in an up state. So let's look at both of these here. Let's say do show run, and we're going to look at Ethernet 1.2 and 1.3 are the two links in that Ether channel. So switch port trunking cap.1q, switch port, do you see the problem? Why might it be in a suspended state? Exactly. Because all of these links need to be what? They need to be trunk links. So it looks like that could be the problem where Greg mistakenly configured it, Ethernet 1.2, mistakenly configured it as an access port as opposed to a switch port mode trunk. So we're going to say switch port mode trunk, and we're going to say no switch port mode access. And then I'm going to say shut. So we're going to shut down Ethernet 1.2, and then I'm going to say no shut. And now let's see what happens. Do show Etherchannel Summary. Let's see what we've got here. So it's still in a suspended state. Let's come back over to DSW2. Let me see. So what do we have here? Invalid port bandwidth. So let's take a look. Do show run. And let's look at 00 and 03 on DSW02. So there's 00. Everything looks good. It's in the passive state. That's okay because the other side is active. And 01. So what's wrong with 01 here? And let me confirm it's 00. No, sorry, 00 and 03. So we're going to look at DSW2 00, and here's 03. So everything looks okay from this perspective, and we changed Ethernet 1.2 to a trunk. Let's go ahead, and typically this is what I'll do is when I go into interface range, Ethernet, and you know what? I think I may have been changing the wrong 030. I keep losing my place here. 0, 0, and 0, 3 on DSW02. So everything looks good there. So we're going to go into interface range Ethernet 0, 0, and then comma Ethernet 0, 3. And I'm going to say shut. We're going to shut both of the links down. And then I'm going to say no shut to try to bring those links back up. So there we see that Ethernet 0, 0, and 0, 3 change the state to up. If I say do show run interface port channel 1, LACP currently not enabled on the remote port. So if I come over to switch 2 and say do show run, and this is, make sure I got my interfaces right here, 1, 2, and 1, 3. Do show run. Let's take a look at 1, 2. Channel group 1 mode active. That looks correct. Oh, no, the duplex auto is okay. And 1, 3 is mode active. So we've got active on this side, and that actually looks good. Do show Etherchannel Summary. Let's see what we've got here. So we still have Ethernet 1, 2 in a suspended state. And then back over here. So the error message is telling us that Ethernet 03 is suspended because LACP do show run. Let's see. On 03 is LACP. It's passive, but that should be okay. Active and passive, because it's active on the other side. So here's what I'll do. I'm going to simply say no channel group, oops, sorry, channel group 1 mode passive, and I'll say channel group 1 mode active. And let's see if that was the bump that it needed for. So the port channel came up. Do show 03 is suspended. LACP currently not enabled on the remote port. All right, so we just redid this. So do show Etherchannel Summary. And again, still in the suspended state. So over on switch 2, which is, let's make sure we get the right interfaces, 1, 2, and 1, 3. Interface range Ethernet 1, 2, and 3. And we're simply going to say do show run. Let's see what the channel group, let's make sure the channel group is the same. It is channel group 1. Duplex auto. Am I missing something? Oh, switch port mode trunk. I'm sorry, I've been looking right by that the whole time. Interface Ethernet 1, 2, because we set it on the port channel, I believe, but it didn't take switch port mode trunk. So do show run. So it didn't take that on the port channel interface and push it down. I had to put it on the member interface. Do show run interface port channel 1. So it was there, and that's interesting. And this may be the virtual machine, just not pushing that down. So if I were to now say interface range Ethernet 1, 2 to 3 shut, and then no shut, we should get ourselves out of trouble here and help Greg out. And there we go. The interface changes state to up. Do show Etherchannel Summary. And now it's properly bundled. All right, so we're good there. So now there was one last thing. So we've got Greg taken care of. The links between the distro and the access layer has been done. So on the way to Greg, Dwayne sees you. He expresses his concern of choosing the best mechanism to load balance across the Ether channel. You ensure him that you know what you are doing. Well, let's take a look. Let's go back to our diagram. And here's the internet here, right? So if we were trying to go to the internet from PC1 or PC2, we would probably want to tweak the load balancing mechanism. And so what we're going to end up doing here is take a look at switch 1. We'll take a look at each path here and see how these guys are. Do show Ether channel load balance. Oops, sorry. Load balance. So we're doing source and destination IP on switch 1. On switch 2, do show Ether channel load balance. We're doing source MAC on switch 2. So switch 2 is doing source MAC. What about distribution 2? Do show Ether channel load balance. Do show Ether channel load balance. So switch 2 is also doing source MAC. And then finally, let's check on DSW1. And let's say show Etherchannel load balance. It's doing destination MAC. So we've got like a hodgepodge here. Well, we want to try to ensure the best hashing that we can. So we're going to choose source and destination IP. And let's do that right now. So we'll go to global config here. And actually, let's see on switch 1, does that test Etherchannel, oops, sorry, test, thought it was load, maybe it's load balance? I can't recall the command off the top of my head. Test Etherchannel, let me see over here. So I'm going to go to a real Cisco switch. So test Etherchannel, yeah, load balance, interface, that's what I thought. So again, it's kind of one of those, we're using IOU, but it's like a packet tracer moment where test Etherchannel, it doesn't have that command here on IOU. So that's not going to be available to us. So we're kind of handicapped here a little bit anyway. So let's go ahead, we'll go to DSW1 and we're going to make that change where we're going to say port channel load balance, and then there are my options. Now remember, the exclusive OR, or the XOR, is only going to be for scenarios where we have 2 criteria that we're trying to do the hash on. So source and destination IP and source and destination MAC address. So that's why it says XOR in the definition for those. The other ones, it's only going to take a single piece of information to perform that hash and then make a decision. So we're going to say source and destination IP. And that's going to give us a better opportunity at load balancing. So we'll come to DSW02 and we're going to exit out of here and say, what was it? Port channel load balance, source destination IP. All right, so let's save our work there. We'll save our work here. And come over to switch 1. And what was switch 1 doing? Do show ether channel load balance. So switch 1 is doing source destination IP. And then over here on switch 2, we're going to set that it was doing source MAC. We're going to say port channel load balance source destination IP. All right. So we've got those in there. And we are ready to go. I'm trying to think. So show ether channel load balance or show ether channel load balance. So yep, source destination IP. And so now let's go ahead, let's validate. Let's see what the validation steps are here. So when we do the show ether channel, what we're on DSW1, we're going to check to make sure it's LACP, everybody's bundled. Right, on DSW1. So we should have LACP all around. We've already seen that. And the show ether channel load balance, we've got that. So that is it for challenge activity number 4 on Etherchannel. All right, and you also have access to the answer key here if you wanted to take a look at the answers. But again, I highly recommend that you try to work your way through it by reading the scenario and then trying to address all of the issues here, and then look at the validation. And if you're missing something, go back and then reread and take a look at what it entails. All right, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you all tomorrow night. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.